Welcome to Advent of Tessellations 2023. I'm Madonna Yoder, and I hope you will join hundreds of origami folders around the world in folding this daily challenge to increase your origami tessellation folding skills, so the twists and repeating patterns folded all from a single sheet of paper. For day 18 of Advent of Tess, we are making basically the opposite choices of the day before. So we're having closed hexagons instead of open. We're having rhombi on the same side instead of triangles on the opposite side. We're having triangles on the opposite side instead of rhombi on the same side. Now the things that are not opposite is those next twists out from the hexagon are both closed and the ones after that are both open. And we're going to have corners of twists tucking under pleats and coming to corners of other twists. But other than that, it's opposite day. And so let's go ahead and dive in to folding Poinsettia. So we've got a closed hexagon to start. So our mountains are going to come straight to the corner of the paper. And our valleys are going to be above on the right-hand side. And I've got my little hexagon tower that I will bop it, grab it, twist it to get it down and in place. And then smooth out and press all of my lovely pleats. From here, we're going to put those closed rhombus twists very close into our hexagons. And if you wanted to do things one spacing further out, this would actually come out to the same pattern as sawtooth, but with open triangles. So you do have a video already, I believe that was day 10, of how to do this with more spacing. So with the denser spacing, just like we saw in days 11 and 12, we're going to fold the hexagon down so we can set up our valley and our mountain. But the difference is that we're folding a rhombus this time instead of a triangle. And so we're going to keep the extension of the existing mountain and lift up. So we're going to keep the mountain, but we're not going to keep the valley the whole way. We're going to lift up and put in a new mountain, one spacing off from our mountain that's going under the plate from the hexagon, and set up our valleys so that this is rotational. So we have a closed rhombus twist and press from the top to squash. And fold that plate back on top, then take the next plate and fold it over. Now I'm going to repeat the process. I've got my valley coming this way, my mountain one spacing further. I know from the previous rhombus that the top, or my central diamond, is going to be sitting on top of this mountain. And as I go to have that second pleat head off towards the rhombus, I'm going to wrap the pleat from the previous rhombus around it, so I'm not running pleats through existing twists. And squash. Again, if you're folding this with one extra spacing, this is going to look exactly like sawtooth. except for at the end when we resolve the triangles. And this actually will work on a 16-fold grid, even with the changed choice of triangles. So rotating, I'll do exactly the same thing again, where I bring the next pleat from the hexagon down. I have my valley, one space from the valley of the pleat from the hexagon. My mountain, one spacing further. I can notice my central diamond, 1/2 of my central diamond. And then setting up that full central diamond, I can wrap the next pleat around, which in this case is going to make an accordion structure of those two pleats stacked directly on top of each other. And we'll repeat that exactly the same way another time. And now when I go to fold down that next hexagon pleat, I notice that it's locked in place from a pleat from the rhombus. So I'm going to open the pleat from the rhombus so I can move the pleat from the hexagon. I'm going to keep some 3D-ness in this area while I set up my next rhombus. And I'm going to squash this one in the air. And I'll come back and get everything with the bone folder later, so I'm not really worried about this. I'm going to put the pleat from the hexagon back and pull half the hexagon and this corner of the rhombus over. Then my valley is going to follow this grid line, one spacing off from the valley of the hexagon that goes to the fat corner of the rhombus. It's meeting the mountain of the rhombus, which I'm going to pop down so my valley can continue one spacing further, where it meets the valley from that mountain that I popped down at a 120-degree angle, and we'll go off into the sunset to the edge of the paper as a three-way intersection of valleys. So we can resolve the 3D-ness in that area. And then we need to likewise wrap on the other side of the twist. Set this pleat down in that accordion arrangement and keep that half a hexagon folded over while we squash our new rhombus. So now's the time when I can go in with the bone folder for this rhombus and the previous rhombus. And I can fold that half a hexagon back on top. And yes, there are different layering options that I could use that would put the hexagon sunken down under the rhombi, but this is the easiest folding sequence. And then I'm going to flip my paper over to deal with these triangle wraps. Now, if this was exactly analogous to sawtooth but closer, I would just be flipping the mountain over to make a closed triangle. And one thing I'll mention is in this structure where you're putting the hexagons right next to the rhombi, changing the spacing actually changes which triangle is required for certain symmetry properties. And the spacing we have right now means that I would need a cursed triangle twist to fulfill the symmetry properties and have the densest available symmetry. But we're not going to do that. We're not even going to do the next possible triangle, which would be the closed triangle. We're going to shift that mountain one spacing over, have the valley further out, and do an open triangle twist instead. Now I moved a little bit fast on that, so I'm going to go a little bit slower with the next one. So if I were to flip the plate to do a closed triangle, then my mountain would be here, my valley would be sitting underneath. I'm going to shift the mountain so it's where that valley would have been. And remember, this is the same move that we did to get the open rhombus from the closed rhombus yesterday, which moves the valley further out. And then I can squash my open triangle twist. And I'll do that for every single one of these triangle wraps. One of the things to notice is that the triangle wrap is just involving the top pleat of the accordion. The bottom pleat stays exactly where it was. And here I have a little bit of wrinkliness. So I'm going to flip over and use my bone folder to smooth that out before continuing to squash. That's the kind of wrinkle that if you keep squashing from this side, it's really, really hard to undo later. And continuing onwards, I have this one and one more to squash. So here we're not dealing with any of the 3D-ness issues that we had for yesterday's piece. And here I'm getting a bit of wrinkling again, this time from the other side of the corner. And I can iron that out a bit and continue on back here with the bone folder. And there we have it, poinsettia. So we've got these sets of parallel plates. And one thing that's nice about this kind of construction is that you can take this set of parallel plates and just match it up with that set of parallel plates. And so you have like the bit coming from the top that connects to the bit coming from the bottom, and that can be spaced out as much as you want, or brought together, obviously avoiding plates occupying the same space, but you have a lot of flexibility with how to repeat this one. So happy folding, everyone, and I'll see you tomorrow for day 19.